working? I don't know. Where is banana? Okay. Work? No, you don't need to call. You could have arranged all this prior to coming of the teacher. Yes, okay. Okay, today, as I have told you, that one more important component of this course is right. Okay, and I thought of sharing one recorded lectures, part of Gyan course. Then I thought that it's better also if I discuss about rights, because in face-to-face interaction, you will understand better about rights, privileges, and uh, about our constitutions, about different types of rights. Okay, hence I thought of taking this class. Okay, now when you talk about rights, what is your understanding about right is very important. So what do you understand by right? Rights are certain privileges and entertainment. You might say privileges, these are not actually privileges, but these are certain claims and entitlements that we have derived from the natures and as a part of the society. And that's how we understand right. Okay. But it is different from privileges, just because you see privileges will give us give some of us certain opportunities, unlike uh, equality of entitlement to the rest. So rights are certain entitlements or the claims which are supposed to be shared equally to all the members of the society. So when you talk about the rights, so these are our claims which we derive maybe from the nature, maybe from the law, maybe from the very customs, or maybe derived from the traditions or long uses of the history, or maybe on the basis of certain principles. So when we talk about the claims, okay, so here when you talk about the rights, these are unlike the privileges to some, these are certain claims which can be enjoyed by all the members of the society. Right. So when we talk about the rights, now we actually know about the human rights, right? That's what we understand. We are talking about human rights. We also have another variety of rights, fundamental rights. And in political communication, you need to understand little bit of the constitution, that is the law of the land, as well as the fundamental rights, and why fundamental rights are fundamental, and why human rights are called human rights. So human rights are rights which derive from the nature according to natural theory of rights. So there are certain theories and framework which you don't need to know that detail, but you need to have some understanding about those theories and the framework, which will help you to understand about the origin of right, how rights have come to exist. So when we talk of the human rights, when we talk of the fundamental rights, how it has come to exist, what are these rights? So when we talk about the natural rights or natural theory of rights, it usually says that there are certain rights which, not even certain, all the rights are derived from the nature. So by being a human being, by entitled ourselves as a human being, we derive certain rights from the nature. So these rights are inviolable in the sense that it cannot be taken away, as we got those entitlements from the very nature prior to the establishment of the society, prior to the origin of the society, prior to the origin of the state. We got those rights, and hence those rights are non-violable. It cannot be violated. It cannot be alienated from us, because we derived those rights prior to the establishment of the society, prior to society coming to being. We got those rights from the nature. And that theory of right is known as the natural theory of rights. And it says that human rights are derived from the nature. Then we also have a legal theory of rights, that is called the very statist concept, or statist theory of right. So it says that state is there to create right, propagate right, expand right, and protect right. So it says that rights are basically some of the rules of the land. Okay, it says that we do have a legislation and the laws which will enumerate some rights for the member of the society to be enjoyed, and that jurisprudence, legal jurisprudence, will also make those rights available to us, make those rights enjoyable to us, and take all the action to protect those rights. Okay, so here we get to see that legal concept of rights emphasized upon the role of the state. What state will do? So state will create certain rights, state will also protect certain rights. So rights are not derived from the nature. We own derive the rights from the state of nature. So unlike the natural theory of rights, here in legal theory of rights, we get to see that rights are certain claim, which are legal claim, which are justiciable claim, which can be protected by the law of the land, which can be protected by the legislations and the laws. Understood? And then we also have moral theory of rights. Even when we talk about the human rights, all human rights are moral claim only. Unlike the teleological claim. When you talk about a teleological claim, those are based on the actions. But when you talk about the deontological claim, you have already heard about the deontological ethics. So here we will say that human rights are always associated with morality. Huh. These are certain rights we should enjoy for our welfare, for our existence, for living with dignity. So these are certain moral claims. Okay, so here we also see that there are another theory, like a historical theory of rights, which will say that rights are product of history. So rights come into existence after long uses of certain traditions, certain customs, and we consider those customs, those traditions as rights. So here you see Satida Pratha was also a right because of the long uses, but it has those, you see, like, you know, whatever, it has got a lot of inadequacies. Because of those inadequacies, it cannot got acknowledgement from the rest of the society. But initially, we see that prior to independence, we rely more on the historicity of the rights, those the claims that we say rights are certain claims, and those claims are derived from the long uses, derived from the customs. Even in you see the Islamic countries, we get to see the emphasis on the Shariat. Huh. They criticize the claim for human rights. They don't want to obey the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, because they said that rights in their community are derived from the Shariat. So these are some of the community rights and also custom-based rights. So we are not supposed to follow the liberal tradition of the rights which are enumerated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So they do have a different set of rights which also came into being as a Cairo Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, so you actually see that when you talk about the human rights, we have different theoretical underpinnings to understand it. Right. We also have a social welfare reason of rights, which are equivalent to make rights as some of the welfareistic principles, which are supposed to be enjoyable by all the members of the state and a political community and organization. Apart from this, we also find another theory of rights, that is called the ideological theory of rights. So when we talk about the ideological theory of rights, we get to see that this has basically emphasized upon the inner potential of human being. So rights are those claims which will help us to grow our personality. Okay, so exercise of those claims help us to grow our personality, overall personality. Okay, and that is equated to ideological basis of the right. So, when we talk about those varieties of rights, we have so many rights. We have civil rights, political rights, social rights, economic rights, cultural rights. All varieties of rights are enumerated into two conventions, and that too in international front. Now, when you talk about the human rights and you talk about the fundamental rights, these are two varieties. Fundamental rights are basically incorporated in the fundamental law of the land, and the fundamental rights are prior to independence of India. So the origin of fundamental rights can be dated back prior to the independence of India. But when you talk about, you see, mm, human rights, human rights came into being after Second World War, but definitely there is also origin. Why fundamental rights is fundamental rights? Because it is incorporated in the fundamental law of the land, because these rights are available to the citizens, because these rights are justiciable. If your rights are violated, you can move to court of law, and court will avail those rights to you, right? And hence those rights are fundamental. And why these rights are fundamental? Because these rights are for all the citizens, and hence these are fundamental. Okay, and these are based on the action. Instead of the morality, these are based on the action and consequences. So these rights are there in our constitution to find the end and the consequence of the enjoyment. Okay, these are not certain means, but find the end. End is the human dignity. You need to like live with dignity and freedom. Hence, you are entitled to enjoy certain rights. Okay, so incorporation of fundamental rights in Indian Constitution is based on the teleological ethics. But when you talk about the human rights are based on deontological ethics. These are moral claims. This has to be there. It's a duty. It's a duty to protect the liberty, protect the um, uh, freedom, protect the religious right, protect the cultural rights. These are our duty when you talk about the human rights. And human rights are universal. So when you talk about the features of the rights, you say features of the rights irrespective of the nature, whether human rights or fundamental rights, you get to see that certain features will define those rights. Like rights are inviolable. All rights are inviolable basically. You cannot violate those rights. And rights are also justiciable. In that case, that if somebody violates those rights, you can move to the court of law. But this is more applicable to fundamental rights rather than human rights. Okay, and rights are universal. But you see, in terms of fundamental rights, we would like to use the word comprehensive and detailed rather than universal. When we talk about the human rights, we will be using the word that is called universal, because human rights are for all, irrespective of caste, class, race, ethnicity, gender, age. It is available for all, irrespective of geography. Human rights are available for all, accessible for all, and hence human rights are universal. But when we talk about the fundamental rights, those are also universal. These are for all citizens, but there are certain rights which can be enjoyed only by citizens, not by aliens. And hence, we will use the word comprehensive and the detail instead of universal claim. So, when we talk about the fundamental rights are comprehensive and detailed. You won't get to find any brief of certain rights. Comprehensively, it is written how it is to be implemented, how it is to be enforced, if it is violated, what to do. Okay, so comprehensively it is explained, and hence fundamental rights are comprehensive. Then you see rights are indivisible. So you cannot divide the rights. When you talk about the rights, rights cannot be divided. Hmm. But you also see it cannot be alienated also. It cannot be alienated. Inalienable is another feature. So rights cannot be alienated. It cannot be taken away from you by anyone. Okay. And then we also see that there are certain rights which will be fulfilled in relation to other rights. In that way, rights are relatable. All rights are relatable. So you enjoy right to freedom and you enjoy right to life at the same time. Okay. So all rights are relatable. I'll say it's not like that you can enjoy only right to life without right to liberty. Okay. Freedom of movement, freedom of residence, only right to life. When you talk about right to life, okay, I can live, but you do not have right to take shelter. Okay, you do not have right to hold opportunities. Okay, you do not have any cultural rights. Even violation of cultural rights and religious rights also lead to loss of life, right? So all the rights are interrelated. When you talk about the rights, all the rights, when you talk about the cultural rights, religious rights, social rights, are interrelated. Okay, now we see that we have certain rights which are categorized as first generation rights, second generation rights, and third generation rights. So when you talk about the first generation rights are basically civil and political rights. Okay, so civil and political rights are called the first generation rights, first generation of rights. So in the first generation of rights, what we have right to participate in political affairs, public affairs, right to contest election, okay, right to life, right to liberty, uh, uh, right to uh, get the free trial, okay, right to marriage, that is also right to get married, right to have a family, okay, then also right to um, uh, be and freedom from the inhuman and degrading act and punishment. Okay, so these kind of rights are civil rights and political rights. But when we talk about this economic rights, social rights, cultural rights, those come into the second generation of right. So in the very first generation of right, we get to see that we have civil and political rights, and civil and political rights basically emphasized uh, uh, upon the liberal traditions, you know. So you can enjoy civil and political rights when there is a democracy. Hmm. So when there is no democracy, you cannot enjoy civil and political rights. Okay. And the origin of civil and political rights is the Magna Carta uh, uh, and Bill of Rights, which was adopted during the American independence. Okay. And then we also have another variety of rights. Those are called second generation of rights. So when you talk about the second generation of right, you have socio-economic right. Those are basically product of Russian Revolution. It emphasized upon right to work. Okay, equal pay for equal work. Okay, then also you have yeah, socio-economic and cultural right at the same time. So those rights are product of Russian Revolution. Okay, equal pay for equal work is another right. You actually see this right to work. Okay, and right to get a better condition of work. Okay, right to get the social security, right to get the gratuity, okay, maternity benefit, okay, then right to get the insurance are some set of, you see, the social security or social right, economic right. And also you have another generation of right that is called third generation of right. Those are basically collective rights. Those rights emanate from the community. You as a member of the community are entitled to enjoy those rights. Those are basically the third generation of right. So you see the right to development is a third generation of right. Right to peace is a third generation of right. Right to self-determination is also a third generation of right. When you talk about right to self-determination, it is looking like political right, right? But at the same time, you see, self determination is a very broad term. So you have right to determine your your political entity. So how you will govern, how you will administer, determine your culture, determine your economic well-being. So right to self determination is a community right rather than the individual right. So here in the very first category of rights, we get to see the emphasis upon individual being. So we get to see the emphasis upon individual being, and a very liberal tradition is focused upon. Okay, in the first generation of right. First generation of right emphasize upon individual being in the sense that okay, I have right to live, right to life is very important, right to exercise liberty, right to equality, right to get, you see, the justice and also fair trial, okay, right to get the freedom from inhuman and degrading activities, right to marry, right to occupation, right to trade, right to business, right to form association, right to movement. So these are related to me. Okay. And when you talk about the social and economic rights, these are related to society. That itself is another characteristics of right. Okay. So when you talk about the social rights, that itself is another characteristic, but social rights are different from collective rights, community rights, third generation of rights. Social rights are those rights that you acquire being a member of the society, that you are not antisocial, hence you have acquired those rights. Okay, so being a member of the society, you have acquired those rights. These are for your betterment only. Okay, these are also of individual nature and of social nature. Okay, and the third generation of rights are collective rights. These are emanated from the very community. Right to self determination. So, what will you do to determine about your well being, about yourself, without becoming a member of the community? To think about self determination when you are involved and participated in a community, or you are a member of a you said a regional party, and you want self determination of the land, of the territory, so that you can exercise certain right by yourself. Okay, like you can determine who will govern you, you will determine what are the cultural norms will be available, or what will be the customs, what will be the economic benefits, how the allocation of economic benefits will be registered, right? So when we talk about the self-determination rights, that will constitute the third generation of the right, and the right emanate from the community. Right to peace. Right to peace is also a community right, and right to development is also a community-oriented right. Here we are talking about development of the community as a whole. Hmm. And right to peace, that is also very important, community and collective right. Okay. So you see that when you talk about the rights, rights are certain claims and it has got certain features. So salient features of the rights are very, very important. Rights are all rights are universal. Basically, all rights are universal because these are universal claim only. Okay. So human rights can be enjoyed by all citizens, aliens, and each and every human being. But when you talk about the fundamental rights, these are mentioned only for basically for citizen. There are certain fundamental rights like right to life, okay, is right to life, then a right to preach religion, right to liberty is exercised by all. But certain fundamental rights like right to equality, when we talk about the cultural rights are not available for aliens. These are available or available for foreigners. These are available only for the citizens. Like that way, we actually say there are certain distinctions which are made uh, in the fundamental rights and human rights. But human rights is global in nature, more universal. But you can also say that rights are not very parochial, not very narrow, and not specific. Actually, rights are rights, these are universal claims. Then we also see the justiciable nature of the rights, right? And we can non-violable, inalienable nature of the right, interrelated nature of the right is important. Generations of rights are very, very important. Okay, first generation, second generation, third generation of rights, and then what is important is the uh, we talk about some of the frameworks that I have discussed, which will actually help you to understand the origin of the rights, how rights have originated. Now, you see, when you talk about the rights in India, in Indian context, huh, so here we have a history of rights dates back to ancient period. We talk about the Tana, Kridhi and Jivasi. So Tana, Kridhi and Jivasi, Tana is related to our body. That means right to life and right over our body. Huh. And also Kridhi is related to shelter. Okay, that is related to right to get the shelter, and right and Jivasi is related to occupation. So right to hold a trade, a business, and occupation. So these rights are mentioned in the ancient histories and the scriptures. What are the words? Sorry? The three. Tanas, Kridhi, and Jivasi. Okay. So, absolutely, Kridhi and Jivasi. Okay. So these are three variety of the rice you get to see. Apart from that, we also see we have a concept called dharma yuddha. You might remember initially dharma yuddha concept that right to fairly dealing during any kind of fight and a war. Huh. That concept was found expression in international humanitarian law. So when we discuss about international humanitarian law, in international context, we get to see the importance of um, humanitarian approach and war with human. Okay, importance of humanitarian approach in the war. So here there are some developments over the years we get to see. In Indian context, we can discuss about the rights. You see, right from the ancient period, we have focused upon the rights. In even the Arthashastra also, we get to see certain form of rights. So in that lectures, you will get to find so Indian origin of rights in India, and also you see that. Uh, in India, we have during British period, we get to see that there are certain committees. Prior to independence, we have Sapru committee. Sapru committee is a great, you see, great task. It has actually achieved a great task to um, make rights, fundamental rights available to us. And prior to it also, we get to see the importance of civil and political rights were enumerated uh, in the Home Rule Bill by Lokmanya Tilak. Okay, and also we see that Irish Constitution was adopted, and in similar fashion in 1928 in India, Commonwealth Bill of India was adopted, where we get to see the importance of fundamental rights mentioned. Okay, and apart from this, what we see that Tilak has given emphasis upon freedom of expression, then also right to equality, right to shelter, right to dissent. So these types of rights were being emphasized upon during the period, during the freedom struggle. And it was also result of British rule because British didn't allow us to enjoy the civil and political rights. But the Charter Act in 1833 has given some rights to Indians to participate in the political affairs. So origin of rights during British period we get to see during 1883 Charter Act, where we get to see some variety of rights with limitation, entitled to the Indians to take part to take part in political affairs. Okay, and apart from this, what we see that is another variety. And after that, we also have Government of India Act that came into being. Huh. Government of India Act also discuss about some of the rights which are to be civil and political rights are supposed to be enjoyed by Indians. Okay, so I'll share some documents where you will get to find the developments of fundamental rights in India, or origin of rights in India, and not necessarily ancient, like the trade rights, where we get to see variety of rights we enjoy. But during British period also there are certain claims raised, and that has lead to and result to the formulation of this document called fundamental rights. So, and you also see when you talk about the fundamental rights, you all know about the six variety of rights, no? Right to equality, right to freedom. You know about those six variety: right to equality, right to freedom. Then you tell me cultural rights and educational rights. Then right against exploitations, religious right, and right to constitutional remedies. So these are six varieties of rights, right? When you talk about the right to equality, this is very, very important right. So we will have some understanding of right to equality. So regarding the origin of the rights in India, so you will get everything from that lectures, because I have discussed about this Indian constitutions and the origin of rights in India. Okay, and regarding the origin of human rights, there are some good literatures available, but I might discuss a few milestones which will be very helpful for you to understand. One milestone is the French document on rights of man that came along with the independence, that is the French Revolution in 1789. So in that document, we get to find the emphasis upon right to resistance and right to do certain act which will not harm others, and right to expression, right to religion, okay, and right against resistance. Okay, so these are some of the rights which are enumerated in the French, regulations, and some of the rights are also emphasized upon the Bill of Rights in American Bill of Rights. So we get to see emphasize upon civil trial in American Bill of Rights. Okay, then also it focuses on right to petition. Then again, apart from this equality, right to freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to protest, it has also given another rights, emphasize upon another rights, that right to petition. That is equivalent to right to protest. Okay, and right to bear arms. That is also another right to bear arms, and that was emphasized during even the colonial period by uh, those revolutionaries, those who are not moderate extremists, that they should have entitled to the right to bear arms. Okay. Then you get to see another variety of rights, or even another milestone of, not variety, milestone of right that came into existence is the Anti-Slavery Act. Anti-Slavery Act came in 1883. Okay, uh, because slavery was a custom almost in all the countries, and it has created a lot of resistance among the women even. And you see that parallel to this, another developments came in 1870, and even prior to it, that is the Solferino war came in, and in that war, you get to see a lot of casualties happen, lot of people wounded, and that led to Henry Dunant established a concept of Red Cross Society. Okay, looking at the casualties, the wounded people as well as the combatant and civilians as well as military. Uh, he reflected upon having humanitarian law uh, when there is a battle and a war. And that is equivalent to our Indian concept of Dharma Yuddha. So he actually focused upon that civilians should be spared from any kind of any kind of fight or the consequence of fighting and war, and it emphasized upon that freedom of human being from cruel, inhuman, and degrading act. It also emphasized upon the rule of the world that those who surrendered are not supposed to be killed. It emphasized upon uh, the fair treatment of the civilian, fair treatment of the civilian, even if that country is being annexed or um, country is brought to this war. Civilians are supposed to be fairly treated. Okay, so that is another development, and during that time, we get to see that Anti-Slavery Act also came into exist. Okay, and another development was after that. We actually talk about 1999. We have that ILO. Okay, ILO and the International Labour Organization, and parallel to it, we also see the development of First World War. So First World War has created lot of casualties, and it lead to loss of people, lot of loss of populations. Even Antite power and the Central power has lost more than 5 million, 4 million people that point of time. And you see that afterward effect was also quite harrowing. It took many civilians' life due to disease, due to starvation, and even due to massacre. Okay, and it has changed the structure of the family. So the First World War has created a change in the whole structure of the family because of the loss of household during the war lead women to join the workforce. So majority of women came out and joined the workforce, and that has actually changed the structure of the workforce and also structure of the family, and that lead to the right to equal participation in the elections, in the politics, in even the other public activities by women. So women has a claim, women raise a claim that as we have already come into the workforce, we need these very rights. We also need the right to take part in election, right to vote. Huh. So those developments actually became prominent during First World War. Although we get to see women liberation movement during 18th century, huh, but mid of 18th century and then middle of 19th century. But actually, those were realized after this First World War because it had changed the whole concept of the family. When women came out in bulk numbers to join those industries, so their rights are to be given and protected. So we get to see the importance of social rights then. They're supposed to be given equal pay. They demanded equal pay. They demanded fair conditions because they need to go back home, need to cook, they need to also nurture the family. So they demanded a fair condition for work. Huh. And here we also see another development prior to it is the Tsar Nicholas and Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution came into being, came to exist when you see this Jar was a very autocratic like ruler, and he during his tenure and his yeah his tenure, people were starving. Okay, people were starving. There were also famine. There was less supply of even military equipments and the logistics. So whenever there is a battle, so there is a loss of life. People were wounded. Lot of casualties. So and there is also a distinction between the capitalist and the proletariat. And Jar, that ruling class, supported the capitalist, and hence the proletariat, the working class, revolted against the Jar. Okay, and they also demanded that equal pay and fair conditions, and that has also given birth to the social and economic rights. Okay, so there are different milestones which help you to understand the importance of some sphere of rights, importance of political rights, importance of civil rights, importance of, you see, this economic and social rights. Okay, and then when you talk about International Labour Organization, that came into being. Okay, sorry, the Solfarinol came into 1857, I guess. 1857. And international, when you talk about International Labour Organization, uh, here it is very important to understand that we get to see the strength of trade union there, strength of trade union and the social legislation by that time, and that consider that labor is not a commodity. So it emphasized upon the fact that labor is not a commodity, and each and every human being has right to entitled material development and spiritual development. Okay, and also it has considered poverty is very dangerous to prosperity of the nation and the state, and hence they need to take some. They emphasized upon the requirement and obligation of the state to take some step to eradicate poverty. Okay, so like that is poverty is dangerous to prosperity. So state is supposed to take step to eradicate poverty and to make equal share of benefits among the members of the society. Okay, so you see that that is another milestone that has emphasized upon the rights of the labor group. Okay, they are bread, like labor class gratuity benefits, their maternity benefits, their insurance and all. So that came into being during 1990. Okay, so these are very important milestones. Then, okay. Then you should know about the Nuremberg trial. Nuremberg trial is very important because that came after the uh, second Nuremberg trial, Second World War. So Nuremberg trial emphasized upon uh, the rights of the war criminal. So defendant rights that they are also uh, supposed to be represented, and they have the right to be represented by a lawyer or an advocate. But at the same time, it focused upon the uh, crime against humanity. Crime against humanity, that war is a crime against humanity if uh, a person is involved in any kind of war, and if he said that he has done so as he has got order from the state authority, he cannot insulate himself from the war crime. As he is involved in the war, even if he is a military person, as he is following the dictate of the state and his seniors, he cannot insulate himself from the war crime. And hence, but he has every right to get the protection and get the representation by a lawyer. Okay, So that has been mentioned in the Nuremberg trial.
But does this trial also involve prisoners of war?
Yeah, prisoners of war. It also involved the prisoners of war. Then it has actually led to Nuremberg trial led to Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And this is also Nuremberg trial is also responsible for Geneva Convention in 1948. It is responsible for convention uh, on crime against humanity that came in 1968. Okay, so so this trial is another milestone. Hmm, talk about war crimes and war criminals and prisoners of war. And then we get to see about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So when we talk about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it was adopted when 1948 it was adopted, and the person who drafted it was John Pater Humphrey. You know who drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was John Pater Humphrey. Okay, and you see, this declaration is a consequence of the First and the Second World War. Basically, it is also an expression of human freedom and dignity. This is a document which will express the human freedom and dignity. Okay, and you also see that when we talk about this document, this uh, involve reconciliation of philosophies across different culture. So, Universal Declaration of Human Rights involve a charter, right? A preamble and conventions. Okay, and conventions, two conventions are incorporated, and a charter along with the preamble. So, conventions, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, uh, that came into exist in 1966, and then it was came into force. And similarly, another convention was International Convention on Civil, Political, and Economic Rights. Okay, that also came into exist in 1966. So and came into force in the same year. So here you see that this basically emphasizes upon reconciliation of the philosophies of different culture. There are different cultures across the world, and this document, this is such a comprehensive document of global nature, universal, that it will reconcile the philosophies across different culture, philosophies related to human being and morality and ethics, huh, and created a wholesome document to protect and promote the human rights. And then we also see that this Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been obeyed not only by international organization and state parties. So it has provided some binding upon the state parties. Now you see, when you talk about fundamental rights, these are very specific to one land, one territory, one country. But Universal Declaration of Human Rights is of global nature, right? It is binding upon all the member state, all the state parties of the United Nations organization. Okay, and hence you see it is supported by even these academicians, NGOs, international bodies, and they uphold those human rights claims and the values, and also uh, use it whenever there is an abuse. So stipulate those human rights claim whenever there is an abuse, whenever they judge any case, they will find those claim and how to uh, you say advocate for that cause. Okay, but at the same time, there are some criticism raised against the universal nature of human rights. Cultural relativists said that this document is not universal. It cannot be universal. Hmm. Because it cannot transcend all cultures. Hmm. And also some feminist said that the component of gender is not elaborately discussed, and hence it cannot be universal. Okay. Now you see, apart from that, what we see, huh?
What was the second criticism?
Gender component of gender is not reflected upon properly in the universal declarations. So, because whatever rights are being set, anyhow, the wordings are also related to man. Man, he will enjoy. So they do have problem with that. But we have different conventions for the protection of rights of women afterwards. So we'll be discussing about it, but they do have a claim that it is not universal because it hasn't provided much emphasis upon the gender-based rights and duties. Then another, you see, criticism raised from the Islamic countries, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. So they refuse to follow these documents, as I have already told you. They said that we believe in collective rights and we should have our own set of rights. Accordingly, we don't believe in liberal tradition of rights, and our rights derive from the tradition. Okay. So you see, although it is universal, it also faces some criticism, right? Uh, okay, quickly reflect upon those fundamental rights, you know. So, although not all, but a few at least. So, you know about right to equality, all of you. So, right to equality enumerated in Article 14 to Article 14 to Article 18, those who are from political science background, but you should know because we focus on reporting human rights, and it's very important to report human rights and how to report human rights violation. This is also part of political communication. So, understanding the rights are very important. Um, so, Article 14 to Article 18, because I have seen there are some people who do not even know the distinction between civil and political rights. Okay, you should know what are civil rights and what are political rights. Okay, what are civil rights? Tell me.
These are the rights that are usually governed to citizen or general public. Whereas when we talk about political rights, it refers to a person or general public's ability to represent a political figure or to be a part of election.
Right to life is a civil right or political right?
Civil.
Civil right. Yeah, you know. Okay, right to life, civil right. Okay,
More
civil.
individualistic.
Huh?
More individualistic.
Individual. Yeah, civil rights are individualistic. Individual right, right to life, right to life, right to liberty, right to equality are civil nature. Okay, but we will make it political when you talk about equal protection of law and equality before law. Now, when you talk about right to equality are divided into equality before law and equal protection of law. Now, equality before law is of negative nature, means it will also restrain some privileges to someone to give or discriminate someone who is needy. Okay, so when we talk about equality before law, or it will say that everybody is equal before the law, but at the same time, you cannot put uh, like president and governor are not answerable and accountable for their activities to us. Okay, but each and everyone is equality before law. But we also have a but president and governor are not supposed to be answerable and accountable for their activities. So it actually says that he is above law in that way. Right. So we see equal protection of law. Everybody should be protected irrespective of class, caste, ethnicity, gender, age, place of birth, place of residence, etc. Okay. Equal protection of law. It's very, very important. Okay. And then what is important is that everybody is also provided employment benefit, irrespective of the class, ethnicity, caste, race, gender, age. Huh. Then we also have some negative rights. When you talk about negative rights, in right to equality, we have negative rights like right against untouchability. Untouchability was abolished. Okay, so it was a block to society. Article 17 has abolished untouchability. Okay, then Article 18 has abolished the title which were conferred upon Indians by the British people. So British people has created a class of nobility, and they gave certain titles, conferred certain titles to Indian in order to create that class of nobility. So Article 18 has abolished those titles which are conferred upon Indian by the Britishers. But again in 1954, we get to see certain decorations were inserted. Certain declarations were inserted in the constitution. They were put forward in the constitutions, and those declarations are like Padma Vibhushan, Padma Shri, Bharat Ratna, and Padma Bhushan. Right? Those are decoration. Those cannot be used as an appendix to another person's name. But against that also, that decoration, incorporation of those decoration, there were a lot of hue and cries and debates in the parliament. Asarya Kripalani were against the inclusion of those declarations in Indian constitution. Okay, although we have abolition of the privileges or abolition of the titles which are mentioned in the constitution. So we do not have any kind of privileges in that way in terms of titles. So in terms of military and academic distinction, certain decorations can be conferred of these varieties, but this cannot be associated with the name. Okay, so that is the condition at the same time. Now, when you talk about equality, we have a lot to discuss on equality because we talk about equality of treatment, equality of status, equality of outcome because we human beings are different. Different in terms of physical ability, different in terms of strength, different in terms of capabilities, different in terms of our traits, our features, our appearance, right? So it's very difficult to understand the concept of equality. So when we talk about equality of treatment, then you perhaps understand the equality of outcome. So in equality, right to equality, so, from philosophical perspective, we can understand equality of treatment, equality of opportunities, equality of status, and equality of outcome. Okay, equality of status cannot be possible, right? Because human beings are born unequal. But at the same time, equality of opportunities can be possible, right? So here we also talk about political equality, economic equality, and social equality. Political equality can be possible in a democracy, in a autocracy, in a mobocracy, or even totalitarian government in a military, like corp. You cannot entertain political equality. Everybody has right to vote, right to contest election, right to take part in political affairs, related right to freedom of speech. Hmm. So civil as well as political. Okay. So equality. Then we talk about the economic equality. Economic equality is also, you see, handmade of, you see, um, political equality. It is said if political equality can be achieved, economic equality can be ascertained. Now, how it can be possible? On the basis of certain classification, we can avail economic equality, and that classification may be on the basis of the needy. Those who need those benefits should be given, like women and the children are considered as a special category, should be given some special privileges, and they should be discriminated. They should not be discriminated upon. Some other categories may be discriminated upon to give them that benefit. Okay. Now, there are also some theories: affirmative action, reverse discrimination, or positive discrimination. Hmm. So, those are some theory to ensure equality of shares and the benefits. Okay, so you need to know some principles. But now again, so there are a lot of chaos because it the whole concept of equality has brought a lot of chaos regarding the reservation. Why reservation is required? Okay, so we talk about now familiar concept has come up. We talk about EWS, that is also another relevant sections rights are to be protected. But yeah, uh, practically to certain extents equality has been implemented. So it was not in the theoretical form. So we'll be discussing about it in the next class, maybe. Huh. And I just want to get rid of that reservation discussion this time. But if you want to come up with your opinion, you are fine enough. Huh. Uh, but there were studies related to caste, especially in UP. You know, in UP, there are few caste those who are lower caste. They are always staying in the um, out area part of the village, outskirts of the village. So here we don't give that prominence to caste. But yeah, in certain areas, so caste is a very relevant factor, and also how there is a politicization of the caste politics is also very relevant. But when you read, if you read this Dotal Hatter Vekha Howda, that's from Mamuru Goswami's book, uh, you will actually get to understand the concept of class and how it is permeated in Assamese society, the caste concept. Uh, but we have, to certain we have moved, uh, like there is an upper mobility, so we have moved from those age-old concept. But even in certain places, you get to see it's so deep-rooted. Caste concept is deep-rooted. So you need to know uh, the problem related to those caste and caste in a caste-ridden society. Okay, because we have got a blot, and that too not in South Asia. The whole world many times uh, point us out because of the caste factor, because it's a caste-ridden society. Huh. But you see, the caste is also stratification of society on the basis of the occupation, and that stratification is there in even Western societies, in Greek societies. That is a stratification on the basis of business and occupation, right? So we might have another class. We'll be discussing about it because it is related to equality concept. Huh? And we have also gender, rights of gender, women's representation, that will also come under equality. We talk about rights of indigenous people and ethnicity, that also come under equality, as well as social and cultural rights. Okay, then we also have the secularism, and that is also religious well-being, and religious fundamentalism, nationalism. That's a part of, you see, that right to religion. So if you know the right, understand the right, you will understand those concepts. Without understanding the right, we will not understand what is secularism, what is communalism, how communalism is treated here in India and in West. So this concept defined differently in India and the West. And also we talk about, you see, um, uh, gender rights, and now we talk about decolonization of women rights. So when you talk about decolonization of women rights, how we perceive the decolonization process, okay, decoloniality. Uh, we talk about different women's movements. So a lot of things could be discussed, but you see, in one class we cannot go that detailed, no? So, okay, that. Okay then.